Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Sunday afternoon, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with stress. And we all have stress, don't we? And we're likely to get a whole lot more. So it's a very good topic for us to keep revisiting. A big, big welcome to you all, and happy Father's Day to any of the men who might be watching where that's relevant. And I want to say that I'm really delighted today that I got somebody contacted me just recently, one of our male viewers who is a father, and asked me a really relevant question. I thought a really relevant question about what's going on in the world and how it may affect him and his family. And so I'm going to be talking about that in a second. And in the meantime, I just wanted to say that if you don't know what Dear Mama Sal is, we're a group of people who get together 3 times a week to hold each other's hands as we go through life. And, it's really important to understand to not be alone coping with stuff is really important. And so every week we talk about real life things, hoping that we will help at least one person on every broadcast that we do. And our experience has been that half the time we don't know who we're helping. And the reason I say that is it's amazing how many people will come out of the woodwork and talk to me and say, I've been watching you for years, but I never came into the chat. And da 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 da. And so I want to just say to all of you out there in the background, you are more than welcome to be listening. And I hope that we continue to help you step by step. The first quote I have is, to the world, you are a dad. To your family, you are the world. And I just want to make sure that fathers everywhere don't forget that. And I know that a lot of fathers will be relating to the question I got asked by this father. Um, and we're going to be talking about it in a second. But before we do, I just want to give, for those of you who are long-time viewers of Dear Mama Sal, give a heads up, thoughts and prayers for Leah in Nevada. She's about to undergo some surgery. I hope that Autumn Autumn moved and then went on vacation. That's next week. Yeah, the following week. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but that's like, you've got to be so zen to be able to do that. Do you all agree? Moving, I needed a month to just recover from moving, never mind unpacking. But she moved and then immediately went on vacation. That's clever. That's making sure you don't get too tied up with moving, right? And the first question I have for you today is, I want you to give some thought. If your income reduced by 20%, let's say that, let's say 20%. If your income, doesn't matter how much you earn, because it's equally an effect on each of us. How many of you would give up or what would you give up? Let me ask you that. What would you give up? All right. I know that I asked the question once, if you had to get rid of one room in your house, which one would you get rid of? And almost without exception, people said their dining room. All right. Because we don't use them the way we used to. And I thought that was really an incredible thing to hear. And so now what I'm trying to make sure you all understand and you get prepared for is, what would you give up? All right. And my question is, what would you give up before you let go of your internet and your computer? All right. And your phone. All right. Because I got a feeling that we've got to this stage in our technology now that we would do without a lot of things before we'd give up with our computer, our cell phone, and our streaming ability. What do you say? What would you be prepared to give up? And while you're thinking about that and hopefully typing some answers, I'm just going to get something out of the fridge. All right, and what I wanted to do is show you my tip for the day. Now, I'm pretty sure, because I've got a very savvy group of viewers, but for all the different ways I've found to shuck a strawberry, this is by far the easiest. In terms of how quickly it does it. And all right, so this is just what I call a smoothie size straw, a decent size one, not a thin one. And it'll just take it right out in a heartbeat. And I'm not even trying to do it quickly. I'm just trying to show you. All right, so all you do is you just take it at the bottom. You lose a little bit of strawberry at the bottom, but who cares when it's that simple? Okay. Jody's saying before she gives up her computer, her cell phone, and her internet service, she will give up most of the extras, even her gourmet coffee. You see, that's what I want you to think about. All right. What is it that if times get really tough and you go down 20% on your income or maybe even more, what would you hang on to? And I want you to think about that. Before you let go of your internet, what else would you let go of? You're right. Would you stop buying new clothes? Would you stop buying shoes? Would you stop buying? Think about how important those things are to you. And the reason I want you to think about that is part of the discussion for today. I want to let you know that the question I got asked by my male viewer was, Sal, how do I deal with disappointment? And you know me, I'm inclined to ask a few questions before I get too involved in any discussion. And one of the things I did was talk a little bit with that viewer and find out whether it actually was disappointment. And the strange thing was that in the very first question I asked, this viewer came back and said to me, no, you know something, it's not disappointment, it is discouragement. And so I want to talk about them both because they're both pretty darn important, aren't they? And I want to talk about them not only if you happen to be a male viewer, then I hope it's relevant. If you happen to be a breadwinner, male or female, it could be important. And if you happen to be married or live with a significant other, male or female, doesn't matter, that this is something to think about, all right? And basically, the whole discussion was that they are aware of what's coming down the pike. And how do I deal with the discouragement I feel about how I'm going to be able to cope and provide for my family? And I don't know about you on Father's Day, but that really struck me as a question a lot of fathers, if they've got half a brain, are beginning to think about. All right. How tough could this get? And will I be able to provide for my family? So what I'm going to do is talk through it first of all, and then I've got a whole slew of possibilities for you all. Hi, Chip. Good to see you. Chip saying, I'm loving this topic. It's very relevant to me. Okay, so that's why I really want to thank the viewer that asked me, because and I love it when viewers send me questions, because I know if they're thinking it, other people are as well. So before I get on to it, everybody can be a father, but it takes a lot to be a dad. Do you all agree there's a great difference between being a father? Any idiot can be a father. Doesn't take much, does it? But, it takes a lot of love to be a dad. And I want us to make sure we understand the difference. I was watching a movie this weekend, and one of the lines that I heard was, when one of us hurts, we all do. And I thought that was so relevant, all right, to this topic of what do I do to provide for my family with what's going on. And so that incredible discouragement feeling, and how many of you can feel that already? That you can already feel that people are starting to worry about, how do I cope? We've heard it from some of the viewers in the last couple of weeks. We've been talking about it for 2 years because I knew it was coming. But, the main thing is to make sure you look after you. The first thing I want to say, though, is about disappointment. Do you understand it is almost impossible to be disappointed if you don't have an expectation? Does that make sense to everybody? You see, one of the things I do to keep going when things get tough, and things have got very tough in my life at times, is I always remember something. Funny enough, a physiotherapist said to me when I went to go and have some adjustment made. And it was so funny because I was complaining that I was having a major problem with somebody. And they said, what do you need right now? And I said, some understanding from that person. And they said, then your job is to give it. And what that physiotherapist taught me was to always start by turning it around. And when you can turn it around, it's amazing the wisdom you can find. Hi, Charlotte. Charlotte saying, my biggest giving point is love. Be grateful and humble for any situation. That is the key. And we are going to get into that, all right? So well done, Charlotte. Yes, that's very important. But when you're feeling despondent, sometimes it is difficult to do that. Sometimes that's where you need your friends. Agreed? Sometimes you're so sucked into your negativity that you need somebody to hold your hand while you walk away from that. And so remember that when one of us hurts, we all do. How many of you agree that that's what we find here at DearMamaSal? All right, that every week somebody's got a problem going on, right? Because that's life. But the interesting thing is when somebody else has a problem, we can all relate to it. When one of us hurts, we all hurt, all right? Because we remember when we felt like that. And we hopefully, have a willingness to help one another. That has been our experience. So when you think about it, right, disappointment means that you had an expectation. And so therefore, I would ask you not to expect too much of the next few years, all right? Because good or bad, the next few years could be very difficult, but don't expect too much either way. What I'd like you to do is to turn it around. And as Charlotte so rightly said, how do I work at being happy every day? And I want to ask you all, when you think about your fathers, and I presume you all had one, whether you knew them or not is irrelevant, but when you think about it, what is your fondest memory of time with your father? And the reason I ask that question is I'm pretty sure that most people, be it here in the chat or watching on the replay, feel free to leave your comments underneath here. And by the way, make sure you subscribe and give it a thumbs up and do all those things so other people know this is a topic that needs to be addressed. But one of the things I want you to remember is the memories. What memories do you have about your childhood and about your childhood with your father? And I want to say that for most of us, our best memories had nothing to do with money, had nothing to do with what our parents did for a living, our father did for a living. It had to do with love. It had to do with time. They took the time to play with me, or they took the time to do this or whatever. And so let's forget what's important to children. It isn't the things. Oh, sure. We've taught children of today's age to expect everything in a heartbeat, right? Very few have learned the skill of delayed gratification. So maybe if you want to really give your children a present now, the present is to teach them those sort of things. Teach them how to grow vegetables. Teach them how to, do things that will be of benefit for a lifetime. Remember what I've said? Knowledge, once you've got knowledge up here, nobody can take it away, or except if you get Alzheimer's or something. But you understand, Teaching your children how to survive difficult times is one of the most important tools and the most important thing you can do. Jodi's saying, I can remember playing video games with my dad. It was my favorite time of the day after school when homework was done. Playing with your children is the greatest gift to most children, that you make the time to play with them. And again, I was seeing something where dad was, a would-be dad was making time to play princesses with a young, he was actually playing a nanny undercover as a cop. But, he made the time to play princesses with the little girl. And that little girl never forgot it. It was just like, it was so important to her that he bothered to spend the time and would put on a crown and put on, a fur boa and or a feather boa, and things like that. That's what people remember. They don't remember the money. Jeannie's saying my dad made me feel like I was capable of doing anything. He'd take me out on a Sunday morning to do errands, and we'd chat, and he would always listen to me. Yeah, good lesson for every man in the world and every woman in the world to remember. When people are feeling stressed, the best thing you can do is to listen to them, to hear them out. I don't think there's anything wrong if you, in this day and age, with all that's going on in the world, are feeling moments of disappointment and or discouragement. I think it's quite normal. The question is it a feeling or is it a fact? We always have that discussion. Why? If it's a feeling, then we can do something about it. If it's a fact, then it's what we need to do is different. So if I feel discouraged, I feel disappointed in what's going on. If you feel it, you made the choice to feel it. That means you can make the choice not to. Make sense? And so let's start by saying, what causes you to feel disappointed and what causes you to feel discouraged? And do you know there are 4 main things that create it? Number 1 is lack of sleep. The number 1 thing I would ask you, remember, always look at the opposite. If we know that lack of sleep will help create this, then getting more sleep will help you get over it. So think about, am I getting enough sleep? Frustration can create that feeling of discouragement. So are you overwhelmed with things? All right, maybe you're overwhelmed with bills already. And if so, I would really recommend you read the book, The Wealthy Barber. Right? I think it's called The Wealthy Barber. I'm pretty sure it is. Read something that teaches you how to deal with money when money is tight. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned, and I learned it very early on, was how to pay bills when you are in a lot of trouble. All right? And it's a very clever system. In other words, don't let the bills overwhelm you. And I hope I quoted the right book. I'm pretty sure I did. But in case any of you... All right, people, seriously. All right. This is basically what it said. Let's presume you earn $100 a month. All right. What it said is take the first 10%. All right. And pay yourself. Take the first 10%, which would be $10, and invest it. Now, you might invest it into education. You might, thank you, Jody. The Wealthy Barber was written by David Chilton. All right. Basically, you can invest it, but take the first 10% and pay yourself first. All right. It then said, take the next 3%, all right, which 30%, right, which would be $30, and pay other people. All right, that's your debtors. If you've got a big credit card balance or whatever, and what I will show you what I used to do, and then live on the remainder, which is 70%. All right, which would be $70. Learn to live with that. Now, the way that I would do it, I learned something from this person that really changed my life, because what he said was that people who are trying to pay their bills are really valued by people. So I can remember when I was really in a bad state at one point, I had a big debt going on. I was trying to stay with my nose above water. I got unemployed. And what I did is I told the truth to everybody. Now, what you know is certain things you have to pay, and if you don't pay it, they cut you off. I think it's the same in most countries, right? If you don't pay your electricity bill, they cut you off. If you don't pay your gas bill, they cut you off. So think about those ones, and obviously you've got to start by paying those. But here's what I found out. With the others, I would contact them all, and I would say, for example, if I had this 30% to pay my debtors, I would list all my debts like this, and then I would divide this amount into all of those people, and I'd pay them all something. Not as much as they would like, but I paid them all something. And each month I would drop a little note in there saying, I'm sorry that I am not able to pay it all off. I'm doing the best I can. I'm unemployed at the moment. All right. And what I found out was, almost without fail, they were so appreciative of the fact that I was telling them the truth. And I have been in companies where I, also help them get money. And one of the things I can tell you, somebody who pays you consistently something is a valued client. All right? As opposed to those who just don't pay you at all. So keep your integrity, do the best you can, and hang in there. What I found was, like most things, that this didn't last forever. But for about, excuse me, for about 2 years of my life, I was in serious trouble. And so think about that. Another thing that adds to your discouragement is a failure. Maybe you've set your own expectations of yourself way too high. Maybe you've set the expectations on others too high, and there've been a lot of failures going on around you. You're going to hear in a second some of the things that happened to me this week. And I've got a feeling that most people would be pretty down in the dumps right now. And I'm just still laughing. Why? Because the monk taught me. Smile, breathe, and go slowly. But one of the things I want you to think about, and I've said this week after week, and I'm going to continue saying it, what if you had to cut back dramatically, what would you miss most? And one of the things that came up in my mind, as I think you all know, I would miss being able to have flowers, right? Maybe I wouldn't have enough money to have flowers. And so that is why I decided, while I still have money, I am going out this week to a nursery. It's having a major sale to buy perennials. That means that the flowers seed themselves and come up again. Roses, you don't have to keep planting them every year. They last you for years, all right? These sweet williams, as I think I told you before, all planted themselves this year. My chives have beautiful flowers, little flowers on them, these ones. All right. I bought some heather because, that not only has a beautiful look to it, but it also has a beautiful bouquet. So I thought ahead and went, if I can't afford to put annuals in my garden next year, I still want flowers. So this year, for the first time, I'm going to really study, and I've been doing that, studying what do I need to get to have a year-long garden that I don't actually have to go and keep buying flowers for. In fact, my biggest problem will probably be weeding flowers out rather than putting them in. Because I don't want the disappointment of not being able to go and pick flowers. Why? Flowers bring me joy. You all know that. You've seen my face light up when I show you my lotus rose. And this rose I got recently called Burst of Joy. Isn't it amazing that the outside of the leaves are yellow and the inside are these, flaming orangey red? So to me, that's and by the way, it has the most magnificent bouquet. So, it's like, think about what brings you joy. Now then, another thing other than failures, all right? Failures, set yourself up to win. Don't set yourself up to fail. Don't expect things because then you won't get disappointed, right? Think ahead, and I'm going to talk about that, but think ahead, but don't do it with too much expectation. Just keep telling yourself, I'm going to do my best, and my best is enough. Fear will shut a lot of people down. The thing is, having fear doesn't help you cope with what's coming. It makes sense? Doing something about it is what's going to make it different. So if you're concerned about, your job, have you researched to see what jobs still held on in the last recession? And what about the big depression? What jobs were going? And if you can understand that's why I asked you, what would you let go of before you let go of your computer and your cell phone? By the way, cell phone, computer, and what was the other one? Internet. Of those three, which one would you let go of first? All right? I want you to think about that. If you had to get rid of one of them, which one would you get rid of? So the reason I'm asking these questions is you need to know what's important to you is probably important to lots of other people. And when you understand that, you will know where to put your energy. Don't be putting your energy in a job that people are going to get rid of. Put your energy into a job that people will give up almost everything to be able to hold on to that particular thing. The reason I say that is because I saw a company here. Yes, Jodi's saying of those three, she'd give up the computer if she had to. And I presume because you could still get streaming on your phone. All right. So those three we know people are going to hold on to against most odds. But if they had to get rid of one, they would get rid of the computer and hang on to the cell phone. So being somebody in the computer business is not a bad thing. Let me tell you what I saw a couple of guys do here where I live. I was thinking not so long ago about getting a new computer, and I did. But I didn't buy as high-end as I normally would have done. I bought quite a low-end one because I reckon my workhorse was this one. The workhorse in as much as I decided to keep this one where the keys are falling off and everything else, but it's actually a very good computer. So what I said was I will only use it to do broadcasts. Make sense? And then I bought a much cheaper one just to do emails and things. And, I can take it and go and use my die cutting machine or whatever. It's very light and portable, but the workhorse stays here. I didn't replace the expensive one because I couldn't afford to. I'm retired now. So here's what I found. There were these couple of guys, and what they've done is they've turned their whole garage into a refurbished computer business. They spend their life picking up and buying people's old computers, reformatting them, upgrading them as best they can, and then reselling them out of the garage. Now, That to me is really smart, because people will want to keep computers, but they won't be able to afford necessarily to buy a brand new top of the line one. So to be somebody who can have that skill to take a computer and refurbish it and sell it on. And by the way, they were selling them with the guarantees on them and all sorts of stuff. So the thing is, if you have that sort of a skill, makes sense? Think about it. Think about, what can I do? Jody, I know you're going to be surprised about this, but I realize that you have a skill that you probably didn't think about as a valuable skill that can make you money. We know that. Jody is an expert at research, right? We know that. So Jody, if you're getting a bit discouraged and going, if I have to cut down much more, we haven't got much left to cut down on. What about having a look at what you're good at, Jody, and go, I'm really good at searching marketplace for deals, very good at it, and for getting really good deals. And Lionel's really good about going and getting them for you. So here's the question. Maybe it's time for you to start that as a mini business on the side. Find something that is well worth the money, buy it, and then resell it, Jody. Think about that. Or maybe you buy up bulk makeup. And what I'm saying is, don't think that you can't contribute, because you can with your skills. Yeah, I know you're smart, Jody. Yeah, she's saying smart. I'm going, you need to understand that your skills are very valuable. And I know you think because you're not well and you're incapacitated in a lot of ways that you can't do anything. But look at Kimmy, right? What does Kimmy do? She buys stuff all the time and resells it. That's what she does. All right, that's how she makes her money, extra money. Yeah, I know what you meant. So you look at it and go, don't get despondent. Get thinking. What would be easy to get locally? Keep looking at what it is that people really want, and think about what can you get that people are going to want later on. If you can do that, all right? So I wanted to explain to you about, if you rest your body, you will become more creative. How many of you know that to be true? Pace yourself. Stop worrying 24/7. I go out in the garden, as Jody will tell you. I go out in the garden at least twice a day. And sometimes I go out and weed in the rain. It's easier to weed in the rain, by the way. The reason I do that, it's my thinking time. I find that my mind gives me incredibly good ideas when I'm relaxed. Do you know, on a Saturday, I refuse to put on the news. I spend the whole day and I just literally stream, Hallmark type movies all day long. And I nearly always get a whole week's worth of broadcasting the basics of a whole week's worth of broadcasting put together, just because I'm relaxing my mind. Ideas come to me, and then all I do is I keep putting them into my system that I have in my computer. And by the time I go to do a broadcast, I've got more than enough for one broadcast or two or three. Jeannie's saying, I was the lector today at church. The man came up to me and said he loved my voice. He said he wanted to have me speak on a TV commercial. My voice is marketable. You see, Jeannie, it has nothing to do with your age. Nothing to do with your age. It has everything to do with you have a voice that somebody likes. And if one person likes it, the chances are a lot of people like it. Well done, Jeannie. Go do that commercial, because you do one, you'll get a second one. I always said, people came to me because they'd want to know, how do you become a professional speaker? And my answer was always just one word: speak. Don't worry about getting paid. Speak. Know that every time you speak, it just takes one person in that audience to like you for you to get a paying gig. you know, somebody with either their own money or influence in a boardroom or at a board meeting, somebody who liked you. I can remember one particular client of mine was sitting in a meeting, and I heard about it afterwards. That's why I can tell you what happened. And they were all talking about different speakers and everything else. And at the end of it, by the way, he was the CEO. At the end of all the discussion, he stood up and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to suggest this lady. Smart as a wagon load of monkeys, funny that you can die laughing, but will hit you over the head with a 2x4 like you have never known before." And that is everything you need in a keynote speaker. And she does it without even thinking. She talks in waves. 1 minute you're laughing so much you don't know what to do. And the next minute she just gets you by the short and curlies. And the funny thing was, somebody that was in the boardroom that day said, he was right. That's what you're looking for in a speaker. Somebody to make you think, but somebody who maybe can do it in a way that makes you laugh. And he said, the funny thing was, Sal, we all sort of looked and went, well, if she's got all of that, that's what we need. And I got the gig. But you understand, it was one person, but the right person. So always think about that. So I think some of you knew this. I had a friend coming to visit me yesterday. And I want to talk about the disappointment and discouragement about the fact that she suddenly didn't phone. She sent me a text to tell me she wondered whether she could move the date. And she did that on Friday evening late, and she was meant to be coming on Saturday. Now let's think about this. I'm on a limited budget, and you are probably not surprised to hear that I actually went over my normal budget to buy stuff so that we could have a really nice meal together. And I had been prepping, as some of you know. And so the first feeling I had was one of great sadness, but obviously I wrote back and said, sure. Now, she taught me something years ago that I never forgot. And she taught me that when somebody cancels on you, it is okay for you to ask the awkward question. And you know what the awkward question is? What came up that was more important than seeing me? Just wondering. How many of you are going, ooh, that's a bit to the point? Well, that's what she taught me. It's not a bad thing to ask somebody. And she immediately wrote back and said, you know something? I realized I was going to be spending the whole afternoon at a 4-year-old's birthday party, and there wouldn't be much of me left after that. And I really think you deserve more than that. And I said, makes sense to me. When do you want to come? But in the meantime, have I still got a fridge of fresh fruit that will not last until the next date? Bought twice as much fruit as I normally would. Now I've, got a problem. All sorts of things. You probably don't need me to explain it all. You get the idea that I had prepared for her to come the next day, and suddenly she wasn't. Does getting angry, does getting frustrated, does getting upset about it change the reality that she's not coming until a week later? In fact, more than a week later. No. So that's a waste of time. So then what I did, I'd asked the obvious question, and I thanked her for telling me the truth. Yeah, Jodi's saying, I'm sorry it didn't work out. Frustrating. Yes. And that was only part of my week, right? But what I did was, how do I get over it? I first of all made sure I got, a pretty good answer. And that made me feel better, funny enough. I didn't then imagine what the reason was. But I assure you, it takes some courage to be able to say, and only to a friend, because friends you can ask that question to, what was it that came up that was more important than I am? I'd just like to know. So you think about it and you go, okay, now that I've got that knowledge, and I could relate to what she was saying. And I said, well, I got good news and bad news. And she said, what's that? I said, I'd be happy to change the date for you. The bad news is you're not going to get the menu that you would have had. And that's my truth, all right? That I can't afford to do that all over again necessarily. Probably will, but you understand, that's what I made her realize, that I had spent money that I probably wouldn't be able to spend again. Not as a guilt trip, but as a reality. Does that make sense? And people need to know that, it's not that you're poor, it's we're watching our money now. All right? That's what I want you to understand. It's not just you, it's everybody. And if you can understand that it's not about your ego, or I want to pretend that I'm doing fine, don't pretend. Be aware of the honesty. What is it? Truth will set you free. And I'm not embarrassed by it, because I know I'm not alone. And that's okay. And do I fear I will lose her as a friend because of that? Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. But was it frustrating for a heartbeat? You bet it was. I'm human. But I didn't hang on to that. So, as I said, if you've got bills already that you are swamped by, and now you're going, what am I going to do if this gets a whole lot worse and I have less money? How many people are self-employed these days where their self-employment jobs might not last? So here's what I want you to do, is to think, get with creative people. Why? Creative people are problem solvers 9 times out of 10. They think outside the box, all right? And they will give you 1,001 ideas. Then it's not that you have to do any of them, but what it does is it frees up your mind. Jody, the moment I said to you, you have a skill that you just don't even realize, and that is hunting things down on the internet, but what if you get them and resell them? Did you perk up just a little bit with the very thought of that? Right? And that's what I want you to be aware of, that sometimes you just need somebody to say a one-liner, and you go, you know something? I know what I can do. And it won't even be what they were talking about, but you were in the moment and got creative, and you thought, you know something? I don't want to do that, but I could do this. So get with creative people. All right? And keep talking to creative people, and talk to people who know about adversity. Talk to people who've been through tough times. One of the things that I had the absolute honor of watching was my son, Doug, go through hell and back financially. And he lost everything at one stage of his life in the time that I've known him. He lost his apartment that he'd bought. He lost everything. But do you know what he never lost? He never lost himself. If you didn't know what was happening to him, you wouldn't know. He was still funny. He was still intelligent. He was still Doug. And I was so in awe of his ability to remain who he was. He didn't let adversity change him. It changed, he bought his clothes at the thrift store. I know that. I assure you, every time that I got to see him, I sent him home with bags of food. And he said, no, you don't have to, you don't have to. And I said, I know. And I said, by the way, if you haven't got room where you're living, he ended up living in a one room somewhere, in the worst part of town. And you know what I said to him? If you don't have enough room for this food, please give it to somebody else that lives where you live. In other words, share it. Yeah, Jeannie's saying, look what happened to us, Sal, with the fire. Yes, one minute we had the world, and the next minute we were on, I had a lot more than you did. And I'm forever grateful. But who would have thought that the damage would be so devastating? Jeannie, you got a whole new house out of it, but you and I both know you never get back everything you lost. I don't care how, you know, how clever you are. You never get back everything you lost, but you will get back what you want. All right, in a lot of cases. But what you really will get back is what you need. Would you agree, Jeannie? And I want to talk to you in a second about some of the things that have happened to me this week, because you will see what I kept focusing on was not what was going wrong, but what I could do about it. All right. What can I do about it? It was, I smile, breathe, and go slowly was really important to me. So understand if you're overwhelmed with bills. Now, let me tell you one thing that I've got to admit to you all because it's important. About 2 years ago, I knew that I was retiring. I knew that my retirement was not enough for me to keep the big house going in the manner that I would like to, which meant that everything would start falling apart a bit more because I wouldn't be able to afford to keep bending everything around the house and doing stuff. And what I said was, I don't want to live that way. So what I did is I sold the house and got the cash. All right, paid off all my debts, and then bought a house. And I think a lot of you know, I live in what they call a manufactured home. All right, beautiful one. Have been updated, love it. Lots of space, lots of light, got a garden, but the thing is that I took that money so that I could live well for the next 10 years. And I put enough into this. So after I have to leave here because I can't look after myself, maybe, all right, I will have enough money in here to be able to pay for my last 10 years. Or, what makes sense. I already worked all that out. So here's the thing. If you think that this recession is going to hit, and it's going to hit hard, then if you own a house, you may want to, one of your decisions may be, I think I'll get rid of the house that's going to cost me money I haven't got to keep upgrading and fixing, and maybe I will rent. Why? Because if I rent, I don't have to pay for the dishwasher if it breaks down. If I rent, I don't have to pay for the oven if it breaks down. If I rent, I don't have to put the new roof on. Somebody else has to. So some of you may say, I think what I'm going to do is sell my house while I still can before the market absolutely tanks because nobody can afford it. I'll sell it while I can and then live totally differently for the next few years until we're, going back into recovery. All right. Jeannie's saying, by the way, I totally agree. We got back what we need. All right. That's the stuff. You get back what you need. So how many of you are people of faith? I think one of the best ways to overcome discouragement is to have faith. I don't care whether it's God or the tooth fairy, quite honestly, but to have faith is really important. You have to have faith and hope that things, the practicality to say, hey, this could carry on for 18 months, 2 years and keep getting worse. The price of gas could double again. You look at it and go, what could happen? And you know me well enough to know I am constantly thinking, what else can happen and how am I going to cope with it? I don't think about if it happens. I think when it happens, have I thought this through enough? All right. When it happens, have I got enough food? I know that I've got enough food in a freezer if I use it very carefully to probably last me over a year. Right? I wouldn't want to, but I could. All right. And so look at it in a way that you can. That's what stops me getting despondent. But that's what I want you to see. All right. All right. So let's go back. If I can just get my quotes back here because I want to give you some more quotes about Father's Day. But I then want to talk to you about what happened to my week and why I didn't get discouraged. And I want you to hear how my thinking went. Fun dad, wise dad, kind dad, strong dad, fair dad, sweet dad, best dad, my dad. You're a hero. And there's no way you're a failure, and there's no way that you're going to let anybody down. You're going to do the best you possibly could. And I happen to know this viewer. What I know is that he is really loved. All right. And from that perspective, the enemy he needs to deal with, the devil, is himself. It's his mind that's doing this. It's like, don't fear that you won't be able to cope. Why? Because I've seen you go through tough times before. This is, by the way, it's not Doug and it's not Benji, because you guys have probably got your minds there. But I've seen this person in my lifetime that I've known them, go through tough times before, and they fought with great courage and great skill to rebuild their life a couple of times. So to me, this is like, just remember, when any of you are thinking about this, when have you been through tough times before? All right, Jeannie, I'm certain you have lived a difficult couple of times in your life, and you know that it's not easy, but you know you can cope. You've been there, done that. Jody, you and Lionel have been through it enough, all right? And the rest of you, you've been through it enough. Be grateful for what you have and the people that you have. And by the way, the people are the important things. When I say that, I mean, don't put your mind into, oh, well, I'm going to have to do without, gourmet coffee. Well, yeah, but, I'll still be, because I've stocked up, I'll still be able to have coffee. All right, the heart of a father is a masterpiece of nature. I don't know if any of you know, but I actually take great store in my dreams. When I get a dream that I remember, I analyze it and to make sure I understand what my mind was working on. And it has really let me down. Sometimes I get quite amazed at how important the dream was, or how prophetic the dream was, when I didn't even realize it at the time when I did the analysis. So here's a dream that I had probably about 10 days ago. And I dreamt that I was busy filing my nails, and one of my nails just came right off. I don't mean the end of it. I mean the whole nail came off. Now, I'm pleased that only happened in a dream, not in reality, but it happened. And I went, I've never had that dream before. I wonder what it means. So I did a bit of research. And this is all to do, by the way, with disappointment and discouragement, that you're going to hear. When I did the analysis, it said in most cases, nails represent some bad events are going to happen, right? Or some bad news, or somebody's going to be plotting against you. It's, if you lose a nail. And it actually means if you lose a nail that somebody's going to try and hurt you, either mentally or physically. So do you understand that the moment I read all of that, there's part of me that was in a mentality not to be surprised if it happened. I quite honestly prayed that it wouldn't, but I also said, but be aware. And I want to tell you, if you hear the things that have happened to me in the last 10 days, it got so bad that I was thinking we must have this thing, what they call, Mercury in retrograde, when things keep going wrong. And I found out we're not even Mercury in retrograde, and all these things were going wrong. So listen to this, and I'm going to this is not about how clever I am. This is what I've taught myself to do. All right. Now, some of you know it started off with a letter from the community manager here where I live, basically telling me a whole stack of lies and calling it the truth. And not so subtly threatening me and a lot of other people as well. Well, then, as soon as I saw the letter, I said, this is about the nail. I'm ready for you. So then I remembered the monk. Breathe, smile, breathe, and go slowly. And as you know, I did a whole lot of thinking for a couple of days, so I didn't react out of emotion. And then I got creative and went, okay, I need facts here. So I, checked out all the facts legally, and only then, when I found out the legal side of it, and had it in writing from a high up person, did I write back. And I felt pretty good. By the way, I still haven't heard back, and I certainly haven't had a written apology that I asked for. Then, some of you know, I went off to go and have a regular oil change for my car. Now, I don't know about you, but oil changes used to cost me about $50. And this basic one, I found out was going to cost me $118 basic. Basically that they change the oil and not much else. But because I hadn't had my car serviced for 2 years during the pandemic, because I wasn't using it, guess what? I found out that for some reason I'd let the oil go so low that it wasn't even showing on the dipstick. Thank you for saving me. And all sorts of other things. And this $100 type oil change suddenly cost me close to $500. Now, you all know I didn't have that in my budget, but do I have an emergency fund? Yes. So I pulled the emergency fund money to do that. But was I thinking, good thing to do? I now know that the car is properly serviced. And by the way, the battery that's given me trouble was rated as good, not even a wink of anything bad with it. So imagine my frustration when the next morning my battery was totally dead. Now, if you had your car serviced yesterday and the car battery was cleared as good, would you be surprised if it was totally dead the next day? And what I couldn't understand is what could cause that. I still don't know what caused it. But be prepared, Sal. I thought, never mind, I will get my battery charger out because, I try to anticipate things. I'll get I've got a battery charger and I know how to use it. I got my battery charger out and I hooked it all up and plugged it in. And after 2 hours, normally it takes about half an hour, maybe an hour to fully charge the battery. After 2 hours, my battery read 0. Was I frustrated? Was I getting tired of this? Did I have all those components that discourage you? And I went, breathe, smile, breathe, go slowly. And, the good news was I said to myself, luckily you don't have anywhere to go for a while. So you got time to fix this. Luckily, you pay the equivalent of your American AAA. We have BCAA. Luckily, you pay that and have done all the time. And, they're going to be able to come and start you if necessary. Be grateful for what you've got. And, the next day I sat there and all night I'm thinking about what could it possibly be? I'm a problem solver. So I get very creative. What could possibly have caused this? And I noticed that when I was trying to charge the battery, it wasn't showing me things that I was used to seeing. And then I thought, maybe what I did was I pressed something that I didn't realize when I was getting it out of the back of the car and hooked up. And that's why it's not doing what it's meant to do. Or the battery is totally fried and I will never get it back, sort of thing. So the next morning I got up and what I decided is that, my 2 brain cells perhaps weren't enough. So I asked my neighbor, who's a very practical guy, asked his wife first, if it's okay if I could borrow the husband to have a look at my battery charger. And, I got him there with me And I said, I want you to see what's happening and tell me what I'm missing. And he understood what I was saying. I said, because, I've thought about everything I can think of, but I'm missing something and I don't know what it is. So I, hooked the whole thing up and turned on the battery charger and said, this isn't reading normally. And I don't think that my battery is getting any power. And it's plugged in. I'm doing all the things I normally do. And he took the cables and he started to play with them. And he said, Sal, these should be sparking and they're not. So you're right. There's something wrong with your battery charger, not the car, the charger. And I said, okay. And then we try to work out, well, how would you know what's wrong with the charger? And he's saying, I actually don't know enough about them to give you any input on that. And I said, well, what about we try a couple of things while you're with me? I'll feel more safe. I don't know why that is, but it's true. So what I said is, what if we put it onto the high boost, which is start the car boost, to see if that makes a difference? And he said, okay, let's try that. So I pressed all the buttons and then got to the car start one. And the moment I pressed that button, he was still playing with the cables. The cables started to spark, and he said, okay, we're definitely getting juice to the battery now. And then I said, interesting. Put it back onto the normal slow charge, and guess what? It started to charge almost immediately, and within about half an hour, it was fully charged. It wasn't even that, quite honestly. But I had to go through all that pain and suffering, and for the first time ever, my battery charger went weird on me, but it just is, broken nail stuff or falling off nail stuff. It hurt me. But I got it sorted. Then I think some of you know that my roof of my shed is leaking and I needed to get it fixed. So I managed to get somebody to get it fixed, and I paid them the deposit, and then they didn't turn up. Did I feel pretty disappointed? Yep. So, and I didn't hear the why until later in the afternoon, and that was that his truck broke down. Well, is that true? I have no idea, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But I still don't know when he's coming second time. And probably some of you are concerned about the deposit I paid. I'm not, because I insisted on not giving him cash. All right. And when I first said I'd like to pay by credit card, you see, I want a paper trail that says I paid you. When I said that, he said, I don't take credit cards. I went, okay, well, then I can't give you the job. But then a little bit later, I thought, wait a minute, let me just double check something. I said, what if I transfer immediately into your bank account? In other words, I can e-transfer. Would that be acceptable? And he said, yes. So I have that electronic digital trail to say I paid him from my bank to his email. And that's what I wanted, all right? So I'm not that worried. I have that, trail to say I've paid him that money. So, and I quite honestly, I think most people are honest, and especially as he came as a recommendation from one of my neighbors. Just before I go on, no man I ever met was my father's equal, and I never loved another man as much. Remember that in the eyes of your children, you are the most important role model and the most lovable man they ever will meet, quite honestly. And it will be very difficult. However, you think you are not coming up to the level that you expect of yourself, it will be difficult for any man to match you. And when you can understand that, and it has so little to do with money. All right, so Jeannie's saying don't pay him anymore until some work gets done. Absolutely, Jeannie. But thank you for thinking of that. Now then, are you getting the idea that things are sort of one after the other are hitting me? I did the broadcast on Friday lunchtime, did the cooking broadcast Friday evening, was really feeling great because we did all that incredible cooking. And then I decided I would bake some bread in my air fryer. And, while I was cleaning up the kitchen. So I put the dough in, and then I thought, okay, let me throw in, half a cup of water so I get a nice crispy crust. There was a lot of steam going on, and the next thing I knew, the air fryer stopped working. And I'm going, no. And then I thought, well, never mind, Sal, we'll sort that one out. Luckily I've still got the little toaster oven, convection oven here below the computer. I can use that one. Put the bread in there, turned it on, nothing. So I'm going, whatever I did a lot of damage. It took out my air fryer and also my other one. And then I again went, okay, smile. How could I, what could I smile about? I've got lots of fun gizmos I can cook on without those too. Although I really like the little ones, all right, you know that. And then I went, breathe, okay, fine, I can deal with this. And then go slowly. I thought, tomorrow I will get hold of I will do some more problem solving tomorrow. And if necessary, get hold of an electrician. Well, I did go and check the breakers, and they all seemed to be fine, and I just was very confused. So the next morning I got up, and after I'd had 2 cups of coffee, I went and checked everything again. And when I went the second time, when I came into the kitchen the second time, I noticed that the clock on my microwave wasn't working. And then I realized my microwave wasn't working. That means that somewhere my microwave, my air fryer, and my toaster oven all went out. And I went, that is a circuit. But what had me confused is, you see my little magic bullet right there? That was working. And I'm going, why is that working? No, it wasn't that. It was can you see my little AC there? There's a little air conditioner there that I put in for the coming summer. That was working. And then I realized the reason it's working is on the top of my stove, right there is actually a socket. And I had the air conditioner plugged into the socket. And that's why it was working. Now, the good news was the coffee machine was working. So, my life's not too bad. The coffee machine's working. Plus, every other plug, except for the one that runs this computer and all the, the bits to it, because while I'm running the computer, I'm also running my laptop here and my tablet. One does, things I want to talk about, the other's giving me quotes. So I got quite a setup here. And then I went, okay, that master plug is also gone. Then I realized it's got to be something to do with the breakers. So I went back and re-looked at the breakers, and sure enough, there was a breaker there that had tripped and it wouldn't reset. So that surprised me. But what do I know? If it won't reset, that's beyond my pay grade, right? So I immediately did the best I could, which is write to a local electrician and say, this is the problem. This is what I've done. This is what it needs. It's beyond my pay grade. Please send me a quote. And I'll wait to get that tomorrow. So again, right? When I realized that wasn't working, that my convection oven wasn't working, I went, no, that's not true. I don't know that. Oh, I also wrote to, because first of all, I thought it was just that. And I wrote to the manufacturer and said, put steam in it, and everything stopped. What I didn't know is I'd blown a whole circuit, and I still want to find out how that happened. And I think it had to do with the fact that, I don't know, but I'll talk to any, I don't have the answer to that. An electrician might. So what I did was the next morning when I got up and had 2 cups of coffee, I said, the first thing I need to know is, does that work on any other plug? So luckily it's light enough that I could move it and plug it in, and it beeped at me. I nearly dropped it. I was so scared when it beeped, but I know it's working. So then I went, okay, that's when I realized it definitely is a breaker problem. So what I thought about was how lucky I am. You see, my oven still works. Not that I want to use it, because I think that's the biggest waste of money in the world, to turn that on. It's huge. Why would I turn that huge thing on when I can cook with that little thing? Yeah, but that little thing isn't working. But Sal, if you just move it to one of the sockets that is working, you can use it. And what I realized was I could use that as spring cleaning time. All right. So I took a negative and turned it into a positive. Does that make sense? So, I moved it. And when I moved it, I went, okay, really good time for me to really clean underneath there and disinfect everything. And I ended up smiling as opposed to being frustrated. I took the negative energy and used it in a positive way. We've talked about that before. So I look at it and go, a lot of things went wrong in my life this week. Or did they? All right. You and I both know that I've got enough food in this house to last me, a lot of time. I was working that I've got the oven, but what if I didn't want to turn it on? I've got Dutch ovens I can put on top and cook in there if I wanted to, didn't want to use the big one. I've got my crepe maker. I've got my, rice cooker. There were so many gizmos I've got that I could use and not have a problem. And I was grateful for that. So I was happy. I thought, oh, I'm just going back to camping a bit. You see, Jeannie, we go back to that thing. I want to have all the plugs working, but do I need them all working all the time? Not necessarily. And what I did was I went, okay, the plug that you can't see, that is over here more, that has my blender. My Nigel the Ninja is attached to that one. And all I did was I moved the air fryer to that location to cook. And then when it's finished, I unplug it and put it back to that nice clean place that I've created for it. See, it's like, how many people in the world would love to have that ability? That's what I keep thinking about, how lucky I am with what I've got, not what I haven't got. How about this one? Maria Como Cole said, I talk and talk and talk, and I haven't taught people in 50 years what my father taught by example in a week. How many of you know that your greatest role model in so many things was your father? And I pray that fathers don't forget that. They don't have to be perfect, but they are such an amazing role model. Because the time they spend sometimes is not nearly the same amount, but what they teach in that time is what is of the greatest value. What they teach is of the greatest value. So to me, I just did whatever I could, the best I could. And it always happens at a weekend, doesn't it? And I just went, you've done the best you can, move on. I'm not going to waste any more energy on it. But then I thought, it's a really good thing to discuss. And then, of course, I got the question about disappointment and discouragement. And I realized it all goes back to the nail thing. And isn't it amazing how it all came together? And it was like, oh yeah, this is Sunday's broadcast. I just kept going, oh, that's another thing for Sunday's broadcast. And that's another thing for Sunday. You see, how much stress have I been under this week? But the truth is, I didn't feel that stressed. Because each time I just kept going, smile, breathe, and go slowly. And when you can do that with life, if we have expectations that, the economy is going to be terrible and we're going to have terrible problems coping, then don't stay there. Go, okay, let me make a plan right now. What can I do? Jody, I recommend that you try and find something locally, buy it at a good price, and then try and resell it. All right? Why don't you do one experiment to see how that works? Buy something that you're pretty sure people are going to want and do the experiment. Don't load up your house so you haven't got room to move. Just do one. All right? And something that you can use if you don't sell it, if it doesn't sell. But just try it and see how much profit you make. And that's what I would recommend we all do, is don't get discouraged with what's coming down the pike. What can I do about it now? Remember, I saw that my pension was probably not going to be enough to keep me living at the lifestyle in the house that I had, the lifestyle I wanted. Sold the house, took the money, paid off all my debts so that I didn't have that hanging over my head, bought this outright, cash, no bills in terms of a mortgage or anything, and then get on with my life. All right? Knowing that the amount of money I had sucked into here was enough for my final 10 years or so, if I had to go into care. And then the rest of the money, which wasn't a huge amount, I just need to spend it in a sensible way. And I should be able to have enough money for my final years. So you look at it and go, if you are worried and you own your house, think about whether it's time to sell the house while it's good. I don't know. Talk to people who know about these things. I'm not that person. But my attitude is this. If you don't think you're going to be able to keep up with the cost of maintaining your house, if the fridge breaks down, if the dishwasher goes down, if the boiler breaks, if the washing machines go down, consider renting for the next few years while we go through this tough time. Now the rents can go up, but you know something? I bet you it's still a whole, you won't be paying property taxes. You won't be doing all sorts of other things. So if you're really worried that the mortgage rates will get, out of your control, you can't do anything about that. And as I said, when I was in Africa, where at the time of the last big hit, the big one, and my mortgage rate was insane in Africa. It went up to 25. I think it even went up to 26 to 28%, because the whole, everything was in that flux. Now I don't know what the mortgage rates went to here in North America, but I know what I was paying in Africa. But people still bought houses. It's just like, but you had to buy less of a house and pay more interest. So think about that. I look at this question about disappointment. Do you understand you only get disappointed if you are expecting something of the future? If you're expecting to get a job and you don't get it, it's disappointing. What if you go for an interview and just go, hey, you know something? I'm going to do the best I can, and we'll see how I do. And how many people do you know that go to one interview and don't go to another one because they want this one to say yes? All right. And when it doesn't say yes, then they're horribly disappointed, because not only did they not get that job, but they didn't apply for any others either, and they've wasted maybe 2 months of their life. So you look at it. I think about those couple of guys that turned their garage in their private home, because you're allowed to have a home business these days, turned their garage into a computer shop for refurbished computers. And they were decent prices, but they're making a profit. That they're using their skills to turn over money. And that's why I look at it and go, we all have ways. Now, you know what I thought about? What if it isn't just a recession? What if it goes into depression? Like the Great Depression of the 20s? You do know that billions were made during the Great Depression, right? But they were made by people who had money. And when all the stock market went all the way down, they could buy up stuff here as it plunged and just wait for it to go back up again. They had money. But if you didn't have money, and if you don't have money in tough times, then it's a lot more stressful. And so I look at it and go, that's why I sold my house when I did, right? I didn't want to be financially secure on paper. By the way, how many of you carry money in your homes? How many of you have got a little stash of money, cash, for a major emergency, like an earthquake or something? Do any of you have that? The reason I say that is 2 years ago, when I started seeing what was happening with the pandemic, I immediately went to the bank. I think I might have even told you that. And I pulled out quite a bit of cash and I hid it away in my house. All right. And I've touched it a couple of times. I probably used 1% of it because, things happen and I really just needed to grab the money. But I tried very hard not to touch that money. Why? That's there as my backup plan for a lot of things. And I would really recommend in these very turbulent times, if you think about it, if we continue to go into the downhill thing, the value of money is going to change. All right? The value of money is going to change. And if so, having it invested in the bank's really not going to help you. You're probably, if you got it invested and stuff, the value of your money is going to go downhill fast. Yeah, Jeannie's saying we have some cash for an emergency. Good. That's financially smart. And if you haven't, what are you going to sell this week to get some? Again, think about what you can do, not what you can't. All right. It's the old story. And how many of you are going, Sal, I wish I had your attitude? Any of you? It's really funny. I was talking to Benji this week about something, and he said, Sal, you were so smart to do what you did when you did it. And I said, yes, and isn't it funny? Because at the time, the market was at a really bad place. But I decided I wanted to get out from all the debt of it. And he said, you were very smart. And, I look at it now and I go, I have the attitude I have because I am constantly trying to see what is coming down the pike and what does history teach us. All right? What did they do in the Great Depression? What did they do for entertainment? They didn't have the internet and they didn't have money because most people were out of a job. So what did they do? You see, if you spend your time, instead of watching, what Jody and I call Snowflake Falls, instead of watching all the romantic movies or whatever you're watching, what if you spent an hour or two searching at what did people do? I've been searching, what jobs didn't end up with a lot of loss. A lot of companies got rid of people, but which ones didn't get rid of a lot of people? What industries didn't? Now, we've got different industries today, so now we've got to think about it. What will we still need? How many of you know we'll still need to eat? So the grocery business, things like being a driver or doing stuff like that, there's still going to be work. People are still going to eat. If you've got farmland, I would imagine there are a lot of things you're going to be grateful for because we're still going to need to eat. If you have a garden, give up flowers and start planting vegetables, right? Jeannie's saying, I'm happy if I have books. Right. And so you see, you look at it and go, what do you really need? I need to eat. I like to be entertained, but could I live without the entertainment? Probably, but I like the communication. How many of you know that I will not give up doing Dear Mama Sal unless I cannot afford to have a computer? You know, every year I say to myself, you still want to keep doing this? You know, it costs you a lot of money to run Dear Mama Sal. But you know, I need Dear Mama Sal in some ways, right? It's why I love the feeling I get when we help people. It's good for my soul. I love it when people come out of the woodwork and know that they can contact me anytime they want to, and they do. I love that. You know, to know that we had enough impression on them 10 years ago that they know they always can come back and they know where to find us. And, you know, I look at it and go, I will get rid of a lot of things before I get rid of Dear Mama Sal. Make sense? So I look at our lives and go, yes, it is true that we all have a lot of things going wrong. And we are going to be disappointed if we have high expectations. Remember to live in the present. What can I do today to make me happy? What can I do today to learn how to make money if this should get worse? What can I do today to rest? Right? You can do all of them in one day. And some of you going, that's counterproductive. You're saying rest on one side, but you know, research on the other, or buy something. You know, you can do it all on one day. Really. It's called pacing. All right? Pacing is what it is. And so I look at it and go, we can do this together. And I love the honesty. How many of you are so grateful to that viewer that wrote to me and said, have you done a broadcast on disappointment? And I said, tell me more. You know, then I just wrote back and said, tell me more about your disappointment. And then I found out it wasn't disappointment. It was discouragement, and how discouraged he was feeling. And I was thinking, gosh, what a sad thing for him to be feeling so close to Father's Day. And you could hear in what he told me his deep concern for his ability to be able to, you know, adequately cater for and provide for his children. And I went, you know, if one person is thinking that, there are going to be a lot of people thinking that. So hang in there, people. We have been through tough times before, and you will be more able to deal with tough times again. Also, I think it's going to be a wonderful time for us to teach those children who have not known any adversity, who haven't had the experience that we have, who are going to learn about spaghetti loops as a meal, you know, who are going to learn that, you know, just because you want a new iPad doesn't mean you're going to get one. And by the way, if you get a new one, it'll be new to you, not necessarily new. Well, no, I didn't want a new to me one. I wanted the, you know, most latest one. Well, then earn it. That's the thing you need to learn, is if that's what you want, you need to do jobs at the weekends or after school or whatever and earn the money. How many of you agree that that's one thing that we don't see anymore? All right? You don't see children out there mowing lawns, shoveling snow, doing those sort of things to earn pocket money. And that is a missing component. I think we, in a way, have sadly missed out on this next generation, and they're about to learn it the hard way. They're going to have to learn that if you want money to buy things, you're actually going to have to do something to get it. And it's not wait for birthdays and Christmas, where everybody's going to give you money. It's about if you want it, you're going to have to earn the money. What? No, but I have to go to school and do my homework. Yep. But if you want it, then you spend your weekends, you know, painting people's, you know, fences or mowing their lawn or, you know, all the things that you can do. and tell them stories about what people did and how they survived, or teach them to have a garden, teach them how to grow vegetables, something that'll stay with them the rest of their life if you do it. And if you don't know, do it together, make it a bonding thing. So there we are, people. I hope this has been of benefit. And if it has, please leave notes below, give it a thumbs up. And I hope that you will continue to write to me and tell me what it is you'd like to hear me talk about. I love you dearly. And Jody, thank you so much for being our admin. And Jeannie, thanks for always being there ready to back up. This is Dear Mama Sal saying we can do this. It might not be easy, but like half my plugs in the kitchen disappeared on me. I'm going to do the best I can with what I have left. And that's the mentality, all right? I am so grateful that it didn't blow the whole house up. I am so grateful that my car appears to be just fine. And yes, and what went wrong with my battery charger? Who cares? I obviously pressed something that changed everything. And now I know what to do. If it happens again, I'm just going to hit on the start button, the start the engine button, and make sure that it's sparking. And if it is, I'm good to go again. We learn a lot through adversity, don't we? When you think about it, we learn a lot when we need to. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, we all feel that disappointment. We all feel discouraged. But that is the moment to have faith. That is the moment to go, okay, I don't want to stay there, so what do I need to do to feel more secure, to feel more able, to feel more competent, whatever it is that you want. It's Dear Mama Sal saying, I love you dearly. We'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye for now.